Hi, I'm Barbara Robbins,
And I'm Breanna Cox.
and together we are the Awakened Woman. Welcome to our podcast. The past four episodes we focused on money and finance. Today we begin our next module of business and career, and the topic for today is creating a business you love, how to align your career with your passion and purpose. So, Breanna, in getting started, what's the difference between a job, a career, and a calling?
That's a really good question, Barbara, and I'm sure our listeners are wondering this very thing. So let's get into it. The difference between a job, a career, and calling is a job is something we do to make money. It's not necessarily anything we're passionate about. It can often be menial. It can refer to like when we're younger, we just graduate high school or college. And we're just like, oh, I'm going to get this job. I'm going to have this summer job. Or I'm going to have this side gig. Career is more of this is what I've been prepared for. This is what what I have education in. This is what I'm certified in. This is what I've chosen to do with my life. And calling is something very different. Calling is something that at a soul level we resonate with. And a calling can shift and change and amalgamate over the years and often does. Now we can have a career be our calling and we can turn our calling into a career, but I would say that that would be the difference between those three labels.
Yeah. And I find with a calling, you have a purpose, you feel a purpose. And in that purpose, you're doing, hopefully you're doing what you love. And when the going gets rough, you're more likely to stick to it because this is your purpose. You have to do this,
Hmm.
So
I
even if it
agree.
gets really hard and you have to sleep on the couch and wake up at 4 in the morning to roll over to your computer and start working because you have too much to do, you've got a purpose and a calling. So you do it.
I feel like when it's a calling to when we're in alignment, that period of rest will always come. That when we align it, it's more like effortless. So once we put in that work, once we take the necessary action and the intentional action, once things are in alignment, things do flow. And as long as we are, in alignment with where we're at a soul level, which can change. And the reason I'm saying that over and over again, just going with the whole June vibes, Gemini vibes, is that it can change and it's allowed to change and we're allowed to change. We can fulfill different purposes and different callings throughout our lives, or it can expand, or it can contract, or, it can change forms. And that's another thing. Like, for some reason, I'm feeling like the need to kind of drive home because I feel like a lot of people will feel lost once maybe they've done something that they thought was their sole purpose, and they're like, now what? And it's not always the case where we have one thing that we're called to do, and even if we are called to do that one thing, we may be called to do other things, or maybe we go through different phases and we cycle back around, and all of it, has to do with, is this in alignment with what our soul desires, what we're passionate about, like you were saying, what we love doing? Because then it's worth the transitions, it's worth, any work we put into it, it's worth the challenges that can arise because we know that everything is going to work out, you know, in our favor if we are in alignment with our soul's journey, our soul's resonance.
This reminds me of what we were talking about before we started the podcast that we've both been through with like trying to name our our business, the fundamental top level of the business that everything falls under when it seems that we're doing 800 million things that could possibly seem disconnected. And when you have a calling, I think it doesn't matter so much. I mean, it could take what you do could take various forms, but the calling, I think, stays the same. Like if you have a calling to serve humanity in, in a certain way. This is where you come up with a great elevator, a 10-second elevator pitch on what you do. Um, but that calling stays the same. And so if you're called to serve humanity, that could come in a whole bunch of different ways. You like run a soup kitchen, you entertain inner city kids, you do healing work, you teach people how to survive in the wilderness, but it
I like
all,
what you're saying. Like you're basically saying that like if we look at the calling as like the broader scope of what we're here to do, and we look at the careers or the businesses as an expression of that in various ways that that can be expressed, it's still the same calling, even if it's being expressed in different ways at different points of our life.
yeah.
That makes sense. I think I was thinking in more terms of you know, revamping things, or switching entire businesses. But yes, I mean, if it's a calling, it will tend to you'll get pulled in something that has a similar energy. Usually you're serving as, by expression, like creative expression, or you're serving by, teaching, or you're serving by healing, or you're serving
Hmm.
by written and spoken word or something along those lines. Like, I do agree that there's going to be kind of some overarching commonality, even if the way that it's being funneled may change and evolve over time.
Hmm. It's funny. I was just thinking that it's like the opposite of what I do in my healing work, where I look for the root. Go deeper, 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 smaller, 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 down, down, down until you find the root of where the symptom originates. You get smaller and smaller, but in this case, it's you go bigger and bigger and bigger, and you find the overarching concept of what you do.
I like that. I really like that. It's like an inverted pyramid in a way.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about like you were basically talking about how we can tell that we're following our calling if it's fueling our persistence when we do it to persist. Because ladies, I'm just going to say, in my personal opinion, you shouldn't have to always persist. Like, you should be able to have a soft life. You should be able to enjoy your existence in alignment. But there's still going to be times where we'll go through challenges. We will have to work a little harder, make some sacrifices, things of that nature. But it shouldn't be constant. You shouldn't be in the point where you're burning out, you are feeling a lack of motivation, you're constantly drained. That's a sign that you're not in alignment with your soul purpose or your calling. So just drawing that distinction. Like, if it constantly feels like an uphill battle, or like you're constantly pushing a cart sideways, that's an indicator that maybe you're pushing against what the universe has in store for you instead of flowing with it and co-creating. Um, so I have a question, Barbara. How would you say we balance our passion and profitability to ensure that our business is meaningful according to our purpose and calling and financially sustainable?
I'm trying to think the answer, and the answer doesn't come from my head or my thoughts.
Mhm.
It's got to come from your heart, from who you are. Like an apple tree produces apples, doesn't produce
Mhm.
pears, doesn't grow corn, doesn't build cars. It just makes apples, and it just comes naturally. And when the apple tree is healthy, when it's had enough fertilizer and water and the sunlight, it just automatically grows an abundance of apples. So for us to
Perfect
be
sense.
more and more of our authentic self and operating out of our, Myers-Briggs human design whatever whatever thing you've figured out tells you who you are and it resonates with you, then we're just doing what we're supposed to do, and somehow you're going to be taken care of. You're going to be provided for by all that is
Mhm. That's how I look
health.
at it. I
Yeah.
I've experienced it firsthand that on every step of my journey, as long as I'm in alignment with my authentic self and not just my authentic self at this level, but the highest version of myself that I'm already embodying. As long as I'm in alignment with that, everything falls into place. I'm taken care of. And I feel like that's how it is. I remember when I was first starting my business, like before it kind of evolved to where it's at now, it started with me just, when I started accessing the Akashic records organically, and then I would see somebody and I would do an Akashic portrait for them, and it was donation based at first. And then I would share it on Facebook. And then pretty soon people started requesting to have it done. And then as I started doing more and more, then I started coming up with an actual price. And people would book through Facebook. And then eventually I created Patreon and I was doing Akashic readings and tarot readings like on YouTube. And then I was getting people from that and getting people on Patreon. And it just kind of started just very naturally, very organically expanding. And I didn't have to do much, like except just follow my passion and try things out along the way. And it was very effortless. And so it's been my experience that, not that I haven't had challenges in my business, not that I haven't had to like put in time to make deadlines for my ebooks or problem solve website issues on Wix or deal with confrontations with difficult clients or anything like that. I mean, we all deal with that. But I just felt like the business itself just organically kind of set itself up like an erector set, to be honest, like the more that I just aligned with what I wanted to do. And I feel like one of the most challenging things for me, for going from a strictly spiritual service business into spiritual coaching business, was trying to figure out how to create a framework with using the stuff I love to help people. And I feel like sometimes the more simple explanation, or just like you said a while ago, just going through the heart and not trying to think things through, or this is how it should be done, or this is how things should be structured, and just go with what feels natural to us and what we're passionate about, what we love. And that, again, when we flow into that, things will set themselves up. They will fall into place. As long as we're willing to take intentional action and go with the flow and, be in alignment, everything falls into place and prosperity will follow. Like the business will become successful.
I remember when I was first starting out with doing energy healing, I didn't know I was starting a business. I just learned it. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I learned this energy healing process so I could help my kids. So I didn't have to schlep all over the creation and take them to doctors and, all that thing that nobody likes to do. And you have to take this, even if the second kid is healthy, you still have to take them with because to drive an hour to a doctor and pay a babysitter, to stay home with the healthy kid, it's just that you don't have the money for that, or most people don't. And so anyway, so I found energy healing and I just started practicing um, I set up a chat room on AOL. This is way back when AOL was the only thing there was. Um, and people would I'd be there like 5, 6 days a week and for a few hours every day, and people would come in and I would practice doing energy healing on them or for them. And then all of a sudden people started asking me, people started wanting to give me stuff. Like, oh, I've just made a batch of jam. Can I send you some as a thank you for helping me?
That's cool.
And then other people wanted to pay me something. And I hadn't even intended I just wanted to help my kids. I was an art teacher person, not a healer. Um, but then more and more people just, I mean, the process I wound up starting like a 5-page website just so I didn't have to keep copying and pasting the books that I would recommend for people or inspirational articles. And it was just, the lazy me just said, "Oh, here's a link to my webpage with inspirational articles. Go read it." And then somebody wanted to pay me something, and so I had to set up a pay button on the website. And that's pretty much how it got started. The Mind Valley dubbed me the accidental healer because this was not my intention at all. And it just kept it was just work. People kept coming. And I kind of think of it like beginner's luck in a way, like it's just the universe is saying, we're giving you a clue because it's actually working.
Right.
Keep going with it. And then once you're in it, then and you realize this is what you want to do, then the hiccups come because you can handle it.
Let's just put it like this. The first step to creating the business you love is doing what you love. Kind of has to go, one is connected to the other, right? And so how do we also decide as, for example, knowing like what are you naturally good at? What do people already ask you for help with or advice with? And sometimes this can be overlooked. It reminds me of the movie Bad Teacher. And in it, she hates being a teacher. Most of the movie, she's trying to land a sugar daddy's and, so she doesn't have to work. And as she's fighting hard to get money to get a breast augmentation so that she can find an appropriate sugar daddy, she ends up finding out that she's actually good at, being a guidance counselor for kids. And
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the movie, not only is she done chasing the whole sugar daddy thing and ends up in a relationship with a coach that she's really that she clicks with, a coach at the school she clicks with, but she also ends up becoming a guidance counselor. So I feel like, the stuff that you're naturally good at, stuff people ask you advice about or help with, things that you already have that are like hobbies, passions, skills, things of that nature. And sometimes, if you're like Barbara and I, and especially if you're a Gemini and you have a lot of different things you enjoy doing and a lot of different talents, think about how they all connect. Think about what overarching umbrella is a calling of why all of these things are here, because I bet that it's all there to serve people in some kind of way or to serve the collective in some kind of way. I'm somebody that believes that I'm service to self because I'm service to others by serving myself. In other words, the more healing I do, the more I learn, the more I grow, the more I'm able to help others with my experiences. That's how I look at things. I pour from an overflowing cup, I pour into my cup, and then my cup can pour into other cups, right? And
Well,
I teach my clients to do the same.
I have a question for you because this is a dilemma for me that I've had forever. Always when you're filling out the forms of like surveys where you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, and they say, "Well, what do people ask you about or come to you for all the time?" And I feel like nobody ever comes to me for anything. Like, I don't know. I can't use that as an identifier for what I'm good at.
But people do show appreciation for what you do naturally that you enjoy, like, for example, the healing. So, yeah, that may not resonate with everyone. So, if you're someone that feels like people aren't coming to you for advice or for help with anything, then you could ask yourself, if somebody were to need my help, what are the things I'm good at where I could actually offer assistance, if that makes sense? Or what are the things that I'm strong in? Because usually people enjoy what they're good at. It's not always the case, but like 9 out of 10 times, people enjoy what they're good at.
Yeah.
You know, how can you take
Oh,
that and make it into a business structure with the way your personality works? So this is something I want to say real quick before I pass the ball to you again, is that I feel like what's really important isn't just knowing what business you want to start based on what you're passionate about and love, but also knowing how to structure it. And this is something for me that was huge recently because I realized I don't want a business where I'm doing a lot of active income. I want to structure a business where I'm helping people, I'm doing the things I love doing, helping people, but I'm doing it where it's 70% passive income and 30% active income. And using Chat GPT and other forms of AI like Claude and Poe, like all of my favorite tools, I was able to brainstorm a way to do that and then come up with a funnel system that worked for me to support that, even though it's still in the works. It's not 100% going. I've got that, I've started it and it is bringing in fruit. But I say all this to say that also think about your ideal career, how it fits into your calling, and what that looks like for you. What are the hours? What days and times are you working? What are you working from home? Are you working from a brick and mortar business you created? Are you traveling? What does your business look like? And this is something else that I would also ask people to think about. Like, and don't think about it of what you think it should look like, but look at it from the standpoint of this is the lifestyle I have. This is how I want to live. I don't want to wake up early in the morning. I don't wake up in the early morning. I don't. I structure my business hours because I don't like waking up early in the morning and I like waking up slow. So I structure my business for that. I don't want to work 40 plus hours a week. So I structure my business where I work 15 to 20 hours a week, sometimes less. So things of that nature. So you want to be honest about what your limitations are, what you're willing and not willing to do and what you really enjoy doing and go off of that. You know, if you're someone like me that's, reflector in human design, which is actually incredibly rare, but if you were, then something else to consider is I can't do the daily grind back to back, even if I wanted to. I'm not wired that way. So I have to take long times in between projects to process, and I will literally schedule things around that. And so these are just things to keep in mind of how do you want your business to work for you? How do you want it to be set up where it works best for you? And then start putting that into practice and into place from that point on.
oh, for sure. You want to do that at the beginning because if
Mhm.
you don't do it, all of a sudden you're going to find yourself working 60 hours, 80 hours a week. And when you only want to work 15 hours a week and you don't know how you got there, and now everything is too big and you can't switch it around. Yeah, I like having the idea of sitting and envisioning what your ideal life looks like when your business is operating in the fullest capacity that you imagine.
And using affirmations, as we've talked about in other
Always.
episodes, Barbara brought that up. Using visualization, using sensory activities of like putting yourself in your body, like in something that's pleasurable to do, and writing down like a business plan or journaling, brainstorming, all of these things help visualize and support that vision.
And you can always change it as you go along, which I like to call correct and continue.
I like that. That's a good one. I like that a lot.
So, in attracting the right clients or customers, one of the things that I first learned was about creating a strategic attraction plan. And I'm not sure what it's called right now. It may be called attracting perfect customers, but it's like a contract. And I see this as a contract between myself and all that is. You write down, what makes you tick, what your clients expect of you, which could be even something like my clients expect that I'm always going to take the weekend off or I'm going to go on 6 vacations a year. The first time that I went through it or experienced it, I learned about it was when I found a designer to redo my website way back in 2006. And she's a designer, so I expected to just tell her what I wanted. I wanted to look like the Northern Lights and the beach and blah blah blah. And she said, before we talk about design at all, we're going to have 2 coaching sessions and we're going to come up with your strategic attraction plan. And I'm like, whatever. As long as I can get to the design part, I'll do whatever cockamamie stuff you want me to do. And so we did this, and I swear to God, I didn't change one thing on my existing website, but after I created the strategic attraction plan, I started attracting more perfect customers.
I love that. No, that makes perfect sense because you were also putting up energetic boundaries that maybe like for example, you know what this is saying to me? This is actually speaking to me a little bit because I'm pretty good about that, but there are times that in order to get a client that otherwise won't be available any other day, I may occasionally make exceptions. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, as long as it's not something that they come to expect, where they're like, oh, she'll do it on the weekend, because she did it on the weekend before. Like as long as they understand that it's an exception to the rule and not something I'm going to do all the time.
Hmm.
I'm pretty good about that. Like for myself, I don't usually um, do client work Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. The reason being is I'm real big on Venus energy, so I like to have Friday for self-care and romantic dates, and Saturday and Sunday are my days off. And Friday I'll still do stuff relating to my business, but it'll be geared more toward that vibe, and it's not really for clients that day. And then I use Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday for all my client stuff and my building up my business or my passive income sources, content videos, things of that nature. But that's how I structure it. And then I'll do 3 to 4 hours a day, five tops, during those 4 days. But when you said that about, so clients know, like you're not going to work on weekends, like that really resonated with me because I think it's not even something like you're saying, Barbara, it's not even something that we even have to put on the website or anything. I mean, obviously, if you have a calendar on there, they're already going to know. But it's it's that energy of when you're doing that in your business plan, you're already setting that tone, you're setting that standard, and you're going to attract the right clients that are going to honor that, in a
Well, it's
general
like you don't
sense.
put on your website that you've changed the way that you eat and now you're a breatharian.
Right.
You know, that is that might have nothing to do with producing widgets. Somewhere in the whole scheme of it is like it's like your clients value and accept you and want you to be your best self. It's not
Right.
just, oh yeah, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to do that for you and then we'll do this and I promise I'll come through and you'll get bonuses and blah 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 blah. It's not about that. I mean, there could be some of that too in what my clients expect from me, but it's also just putting the human side in there. The reason I see this as a contract between me and all that is, not between me and my client, is that I'm saying to all that is, this this is what I will do. This is who I will be. And in return for that, your end of the deal is you bring me the clients.
I like that. I like that. It's also prioritizing freedom and joy and flexibility, which, by the way, ladies, brings prosperity. When we allow space for that, when we create those energetic boundaries and we set the tone and the standards and we communicate, with source, all that is, the multiverse, however you want to put it, as above, so below, as within, so without, like we are creating that reality and co-creating that reality. And we don't have to worry about push, 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 hustle, 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 work, work, work. like we were saying earlier, like if we're setting up the business to support our passion, our what lights us up at a soul level, our calling, and we're honoring our own energy and not stretching ourselves too thin, like the prosperity will come, the business will be profitable. Designing, like for example, if you're offering services in your business, designing offers and pricing that matches like your lifestyle. Like if my expenses are 4,000 a month and I'm wanting to make 10,000 a month or more, I can't be charging $15 an hour,
Right.
you know. So just as an example, that's not going to work. So
Well,
being,
you could if you want to work a zillion hours a week.
right. So part of that is, you have to also, that's part of designing it too, is, if I only want to work 15 hours a week and I want to make this much money, I either need to do high ticket or I need to do passive income or a combination of the two. And I'm not saying that that is all our listeners, but I'm just using it as an example of whatever you're trying to create for yourself, like make sure that the way you structure your business is going to match that dream, is going to support that process. And it's okay if things shift and grow. It's okay to sell one business and start another, allowing that evolution without fear, as long as we were just in alignment and following the passion, the purpose, the calling.
Mhm.
I think it's important to check in with ourselves every once in a while and be like, hey, is this part of the work still aligning? Is it still resonating? Yes or no?
So we've got some key takeaways for today. One, we've talked about identifying your passion, finding the right business model, attracting ideal clients, and building a business that supports your lifestyle. And next week or next time, we're talking about imposter syndrome, what it is, why it hits women leaders hard, and how to break free from it. If you've ever doubted your worth or felt like a fraud, this episode is for you. And until next time, I'm Barbara,
And I'm Brianna.
and we are the Awakened Woman.